Philosophy in the Bedroom by the Marquis de Sade. Two Libertines. Voluptuaries of all ages, of every sex, it is to you only that I offer this work. Nourish yourselves upon its principles. They favor your passions, and these passions, whereof coldly insipid moralists put you in fear, are naught but the means nature employs to bring man to the ends she prescribes to him. Hearken only to these delicious promptings, for no voice save that of the passions can conduct you to happiness. Lewd women, let the voluptuous Saint Ange be your model. After her example, be heedless of all that contradicts pleasure's divine laws, by which all her life she was enchained. You young maidens, too long constrained by a fanciful virtue's absurd and dangerous bonds, and by those of a disgusting religion, imitate the fiery Eugenie. Be as quick as she to destroy, to spurn all those ridiculous precepts inculcated in you by imbecile parents. And you, amiable debauchees, you who since youth have known no limits but those of your desires, and who have been governed by your caprices alone, study the cynical Dolmance. Proceed like him, and go as far as he, if you too would travel the length of those flowered ways your lechery prepares for you. In Dolmance's academy, be at last convinced it is only by exploring and enlarging the sphere of his tastes and whims, it is only by sacrificing everything to the senses' pleasure that this individual, who never asked to be cast into this universe of woe, that this poor creature who goes under the name of man may be able to sow a smattering of roses atop the thorny path of life. Dialogue the First.
Good day, my friend. And what of Monsieur de Montse?
He'll be here promptly at 4. We do not dine until 7, and will have, as you see, ample time to chat.
You know, my dear brother, I do begin to have a few misgivings about my curiosity and all the obscene plans scheduled for today. Chevalier, you overindulge me, truly you do. The more sensible I should be, the more excited and libertine this accursed mind of mine becomes, and all that you have given me but serves to spoil me. At 26, I should be sober and staid, and I'm still nothing but the most licentious of women. Oh, I've a busy brain, my friend. You'd scarce believe the idea I have, the things I'd like to do. I supposed that by confining myself to women, I would become better behaved. That were my desires concentrated upon my own sex, I would no longer pant after yours. Pure fantasy, my friend. My imagination has only been pricked the more by the pleasures I thought to deprive myself of. I have discovered that when it is a question of someone like me, born for libertinage, it is useless to think of imposing limits or restraints upon myself. Impetuous desires immediately sweep them away. In a word, my dear, I am an amphibious creature. I love everything, everyone, whatever it is. It amuses me. I should like to combine every species. But you must admit, Chevalier, it is not the height of extravagance for me to wish to know this unusual de Montse, who in all his life, you tell me, has been unable to see a woman according to the prescriptions of common usage. This de Montse, who, a sodomite out of principle, not only worships his own sex, but never yields to ours, save when we consent to put at his disposal those so well-beloved charms of which he habitually makes use when consorting with men. Tell me, Chevalier, if my fancy is not bizarre. I want to be Ganymede to his Jupiter. I want to enjoy his tastes, his debauches. I want to be the victim of his errors. Until now, and well you know it, my friend, until now I have given myself thus only to you, through complaisance, or to a few of my servants who, paid to use me in this manner, adopted it for profit only. But today it is no longer the desire to oblige, nor is it the caprice that moves me, but solely my own penchants. I believe that between my past experiences with this curious mania and the curtsies to which I am going to be subjected, there is an inconceivable difference, and I wish to be acquainted with it. Paint your de Montse for me, please do, that I may have him well fixed in my mind before I see him arrive. For you know my acquaintance with him is limited to an encounter the other day, in a house where we were together for but a few minutes.
Dalmanse, my dear sister, has just turned 36. He's tall, extremely handsome, eyes very alive and very intelligent, but all the same there's some suspicion of hardness and a trace of wickedness in his features. He has the whitest teeth in the world, a shade of softness about his figure and in his attitude, doubtless owing to his habit of taking on effeminate airs so often. He is extremely elegant, has a pretty voice, many talents, and above all else, an exceedingly philosophic bent to his mind.
But I trust he does not believe in God.
Oh, perish the thought. He's the most notorious atheist, the most immoral fellow. Oh no, his is the most complete and thoroughgoing corruption, and he the most evil individual, the greatest scoundrel in the world.
Oh, how that warms me. Methinks that I'll be wild about this man. And what of his fancies, brother?
You know them full well. Sodom's delights are as dear to him in their active as in their passive form. For his pleasures, he cares for none but men. If, however, he sometimes deigns to employ women, it is only upon the condition they be obliging enough to exchange sex with him. I've spoken of you to him. I advised him of your intentions. He agrees, and in his turn reminds you of the rules of the game. I warn you, my dear, he will refuse you altogether if you attempt to engage him to undertake anything else. What I consent to do with your sister is, he declares, an extravagance, an indiscretion with which one soils oneself, but rarely and only by taking ample precautions.
Soil oneself! Precautions! Oh, how I adore the language those agreeable persons use. Between ourselves, we women also have exclusive words, which, like these just spoken, give an idea of the profound horror they have of all those who show heretical tendencies. Tell me, my dear, has he had you? With your adorable face and your 20 years, one may, I dare say, captivate such a man.
We've committed follies together. I'll not hide them from you. You have too much wit to condemn them. The fact is, I favor women. I only give myself up to these odd whimsies when an attractive man urges me to them. And then there's nothing I stop at. I've none of that ludicrous arrogance which makes our young upstarts believe that it's by cuts with your walking stick you respond to such propositions. Is man master of his penchants? One must feel sorry for those who have strange tastes, but never insult them. Their wrong is nature's too. They're no more responsible for having come into the world with tendencies unlike ours than are we for being born bandy-legged or well-proportioned. Is it, however, that a man acts insultingly to you when he manifests his desire to enjoy you? No, surely not. It is a compliment you are paid. Why then answer with injuries and insults? Only fools can think thus. Never will you hear an intelligent man discuss the question in a manner different from mine. But the trouble is, the world is peopled with poor idiots, who believe it is to lack respect for them to avow one finds them fitted for one's pleasures, and who, pampered by women, themselves forever jealous of what has the look of infringing upon their rights, fancy themselves to be the Don Quixotes of those ordinary rights, and brutalize whoever does not acknowledge the entirety of their extent.
Come, my friend, kiss me. Were you to think otherwise, you'd not be my brother. A few details, I beseech you, both with what regards this man's appearance and his pleasures with you.
One of his friends informed Monsieur Dolmance of the superb member wherewith you know me provided, and he obtained the consent of the Marquis de V to bring us together at supper. Once there, I was obliged to display my equipment. At first, curiosity appeared to be his single motive. However, a very fair ass turned my way, and with which I was invited to amuse myself, soon made me see that penchant alone was the cause of his examination. I had Dolmance notice all the enterprise's difficulties. He was steadfast. "A ram holds no terrors for me," he said, "and you'll not have even the glory of being the most formidable amongst the men who have perforated the anus I offer you." The Marquis was on hand. He encouraged us by fingering, dandling, kissing, whatever the one or the other of us brought to light. I took up my position. "Surely some kind of primming?" I urged. "Nothing of the sort," said the Marquis. "You'll rob Dolmance of half the sensations he awaits from you. He wants you to cleave him in two. He wants to be torn asunder." "Well," I said, blindly plunging into the gulf, "he'll be satisfied." "Perhaps, my dear sister, you think that I met with a great deal of trouble. Not at all. My prick, enormous as it is, disappeared, contrary to all my expectations, and I touched the bottom of his entrails without the bugger seeming to feel a thing. I dealt kindly with Dolmance. The extreme ecstasy he tasted, his wrigglings and quiverings, his enticing utterances, all this soon made me happy too, and I inundated him. Scarcely was I withdrawn when Dolmance, turning toward me, his hair in disarray and his face red as Bacchus, "You see the state you've put me in, my dear Chevalier," said he, simultaneously presenting a pert, tough rogue of a prick, very long and at least 6 inches around. "Deign, O my love, deign to serve me as a woman after having been my lover, and enable me to say that in your divine arms I have tasted all the delights of the fancy I cherish supremely." Finding as little difficulty in the one as in the other, I readied myself. The Marquis, dropping his breeches before my eyes, begged me to have the kindness to be yet a little of the man with him while I played wife to his friend. And I dealt with him as I had with Dolmance, who paid me back 100-fold for all the blows wherewith I belabored our third, and soon, into the depths of my ass, he exhaled that enchanted liquor, with which, at virtually the same instant, I sprayed the bowels of V.
You must have known the most extreme pleasure to find yourself thus between two. They say it is charming.
My angel, it is surely the best place to be. But whatever may be said of them, they're all extravagances which I should never prefer to the pleasures of women.
Well, my chivalrous friend, as reward for your touching consideration, today I'm going to hand over your passions to a young virgin, a girl, more beautiful than love itself.
What? With Dolmance, you're bringing a woman here?
It is a matter of education. That of a little thing I knew last summer at the convent, while my husband was at the baths. We could accomplish nothing there. We dared try nothing. Too many eyes were fixed upon us, but we made a promise to meet again, to get together as soon as possible. Occupied with nothing but this desire, I have, in order to satisfy it, become acquainted with her family. Her father is a libertine. I've enthralled him. At any rate, the lovely one is coming. I'm waiting for her. We'll spend 2 days together. 2 delicious days. I shall employ the better part of the time educating the young lady. Dolmance and I will put into this pretty little head every principle of the most unbridled libertinage. We will set her ablaze with our own fire. We will feed her upon our philosophy, inspire her with our desires. And as I wish to join a little practice to theory, as I like the demonstrations to keep abreast of the dissertations, I have destined to you, dear brother, the harvest of Cythera's myrtle, and to Delancey shall go the roses of Sodom. I'll have two pleasures at once, that of enjoying these criminal lecheries myself, and that of giving the lessons, of inspiring fancies in the sweet innocence I am luring into our nets. Very well, Chevalier, answer me. Is the project worthy of my imagination?
It could not have risen in any other. It is divine, my sister, and I promise to enact to perfection the charming role you've reserved for me. Ah, mischievous one, how much pleasure you're going to take in educating this child. What pleasure you will find in corrupting her, in stifling within this young heart every seed of virtue and of religion planted there by her tutors. Actually, all this is too rakish for me.
Be certain I'll spare nothing to pervert her, degrade her, demolish in her all the false ethical notions with which they may already have been able to dizzy her. In 2 lessons, I want to render her as criminal as I am, as impious, as debauched, as depraved. Notify Delancey, explain everything to him as soon as he gets here, so that his immorality's poison, circulating in this young spirit together with the venom I shall inject, will in the shortest possible time wither and still all the seeds of virtue that but for us might germinate there.
It would be impossible to find a better man. Irreligion, impiety, inhumanity, libertinage spill from Delancey's lips as in times past mystic unction fell from those of the celebrated Archbishop of Cambrai. He's the most profound seducer, the most corrupt, the most dangerous man. Ah, my dear, let your pupil but comply with this teacher's instructions, and I guarantee her straightway damned.
It should certainly not take long, considering the dispositions I know her to possess.
But tell me, my dear sister, is there nothing to fear from the parents? May not this little one chatter when she returns home?
Have no fears. I have seduced the father. He's mine. I must confess to you, I surrendered myself to him in order to close his eyes. He knows nothing of my designs, and I will never dare to scan them. I have him.
Your methods are appalling.
Such they must be, else they're not sure.
And tell me, please, who is this youngster?
Her name is Eugenie, daughter of a certain Mistival, one of the wealthiest commercial figures in the capital, aged about 36. Her mother is 32 at the very most, and the little girl 15. Mistival is a libertine, and his wife is pious. As for Eugenie, dear one, I should in vain undertake to figure her to you. She is quite beyond my descriptive powers. Satisfy yourself with the knowledge that assuredly neither you nor I have ever set eyes on anything so delicious anywhere.
But at least sketch a little, if you cannot paint the portrait, so that, knowing fairly well with whom I am to deal, I may better fill my imagination with the idol to which I must sacrifice.
Very well, my dear friend. Her abundant chestnut hair, there's too much of it to grasp in one's hand, descends to below her buttocks. Her skin is of a dazzling whiteness, her nose rather aquiline, her eyes jet black and of warmth. Ah, my friend, 'tis impossible to resist those eyes. You've no idea of the stupidities they've driven me to. Could you but see the pretty eyebrows that crown them, the extraordinary lashes that border them, a very small mouth, superb teeth, and all of it of a freshness. One of her beauties is the elegant manner whereby her lovely head is attached to her shoulders, the air of nobility she has when she turns. Eugenie is tall for her age. One might think her 17. Her figure is a model of elegance and fitness, her throat, her bosom delicious. There indeed are the 2 prettiest little breasts, scarcely enough there to fill the hand, but so soft, so fresh, so very white. 20 times have I gone out of my head while kissing them. And had you been able to see how she came alive under my caresses, how her two great eyes represented to me the whole state of her mind. My friend, I ignore the rest. But if I must judge her by what I know, never, I say, had Olympus a divinity comparable with this. But I hear her. Leave us. Go out by the way of the garden to avoid meeting her, and be on time at the rendezvous.
The portrait you've just made for me assures my promptness. Have I to go out to leave you in the state I am in? Adieu. A kiss, my dear sister, to satisfy me at least till then. Dialogue the Second.
Welcome, my pet. I have been awaiting you with an impatience you fully appreciate if you read the feelings I have in my heart.
Oh, my precious one, I thought I should never arrive. So eager was I to find myself in your arms. An hour before leaving, I dreaded all might be changed. My mother was absolutely opposed to this delightful party, declaring it ill became a girl of my age to go abroad alone. But my father had so abused her the day before yesterday that a single one of his glances was quite enough to cause Madame Mistival to subside utterly. And it ended with her consenting to what my father had granted me, and I rushed here. I have 2 days. Your carriage and one of your servants must without fail take me home the day after tomorrow.
How short is this period, my dear angel. In so little time I shall hardly be able to express to you all the excitement in me, and indeed we have to talk. You know, do you not, that 'tis during this interview that I am to initiate you into the most secret of Venus mysteries. Shall 2 days be enough time?
Were I not to arrive at a complete knowledge, I should remain. I came hither to be instructed, and will not go till I am informed.
Oh, dear love, how many things are we going to do and say to one another? But by the way, do you wish to take lunch, my queen? For the lesson may be prolonged.
I have no need, dear friend, than to listen to you. We lunched a league from here. I'll be able to wait until 8 o'clock this evening without feeling the least hunger.
Then let's go into my boudoir, where we will be more at ease. I have already spoken to the servants. You may be certain no one shall take it into his head to interrupt us.
Dialogue the Third.
Great God! Dearest friend, we are betrayed! Strange, monsieur, to find you here. Were you not expected at 4?
One always hastens the advent of that happiness which comes of seeing you, madame. I encountered monsieur, your brother. He anticipated the usefulness of my presence at the lessons you are to give mademoiselle, and knew this to be the lyceum where they would be given. Unperceived, he introduced me into this chamber, far from imagining you might disapprove, and, as for himself, aware his demonstrations will only be necessary after the dissertations on theory, he will not make his appearance until later.
Indeed, de Moncey, this is an unforeseen turn.
By which I am not deceived, my good friend. It is all your work. At least you should have consulted me, instead of exposing me to this shame. It will certainly prejudice all our projects.
Eugenie, I protest. My brother is responsible for this, not I. But there's no cause for alarm. I know de Moncey for a most agreeable man, and he possesses just the degree of philosophic understanding we require for your enlightenment. He can be of nothing but the greatest service to our schemes. As for his discretion, I am as willing to answer for it as for my own. Therefore, dear heart, Familiarize yourself with this man, who in all the world is the best endowed to form you and to guide you into a career of the happiness and the pleasures we wish to taste together.
I still find all of this most upsetting.
Come, my lovely Eugenie, put yourself at ease. Modesty is an antiquated virtue which you, so rich in charms, ought to know wonderfully well how to do without.
But decency...
Ah, a Gothicism, not very much defended these days. It is so hostile to nature. Dolmance seizes Eugenie, holds her in his arms, and kisses her.
Struggling in his embrace. That's quite enough, monsieur. Indeed, you show me very little consideration.
Eugenie, listen to me. Let's both of us cease behaving like prudes with this charming gentleman. I am not better acquainted with him than you. Yet watch how I give myself to him. She kisses him indecently on the mouth. Imitate me.
Oh, most willingly. Where might I find better examples? She puts herself in Dolmance's arms. He kisses her ardently, tongue in the mouth.
Amiable, delicious creature.
Kissing her in the same way. Didst think, little chit, I'd not have my turn as well?
At this point, Dolmance, holding first one in his arms and the other, tongues both, each for a quarter of an hour, and they both tongue one another and him. Ah, such preliminaries make me drunk with desire. Mesdames, upon my word, it is extraordinarily warm here. More lightly attired, we might converse with infinitely greater comfort.
You're right. Sit. We'll don these gauze negligees of our charms. They'll conceal only those that must be hidden from desire.
Indeed, dear one, you lead me to do such things.
Helping her undress. Completely ridiculous, isn't it?
Most improper at the very least, I'd say. My, how you kiss me.
Pretty bosom. A rose only now reaching full bloom.
And which promises yet other allurements, infinitely to be preferred.
Infinitely to be preferred?
Oh yes, upon my honor. Saying which, Dolmance appears eager to turn Eugenie about in order to inspect her from the rear.
No, I beg of you.
No, Dolmance. I don't want you yet to see an object whose sway over you is so great that the image of it once fixed in your head, you are unable thereafter to reason coolly. We need your lessons. First give them to us, and afterward, the myrtle you covet will be your reward.
Very well. But in order to demonstrate, in order to give this beautiful child the first lessons of libertinage, we will require willing cooperation from you, madame, in the exercise that must follow.
So be it. All right, then. Look you here. I'm entirely naked. Make your dissertations upon me as much as you please.
Oh, lovely body. 'Tis Venus herself, embellished by the graces.
Oh, my dear friend, what charms, delights! Let me drink them with my eyes. Let me cover them with my kisses.
What excellent predispositions. A trifle less passion, lovely Eugenie. For the moment, you are only being asked to show a little attention.
Let's continue. I'm listening. But how beautiful she is. So plump, so fresh. Oh, how charming my dear friend is. Is she not, monsieur?
Beautiful, assuredly. She is wondrous to see. But I am persuaded you yield to her in nothing. Well now, my pretty little student, either you pay attention to me, or beware, lest, if you are not docile, I exercise over you the rights amply conferred upon me by my title as your mentor.
Oh, yes, yes, indeed, Dolmance. I put her into your safekeeping. She must have a severe scolding if she misbehaves.
It is very possible I might not be able to confine myself to remonstrances.
Great heavens! You terrify me. What then would you do to me, monsieur?
Punishments, corrections. I might very well hold this pretty little ass accountable for mistakes made by the head. He strikes the former through the gauze dressing gown in which Eugenie is presently arrayed.
Yes, I approve of the project, but not of the jester. Let's begin our lesson, else the little time granted to us to enjoy Eugenie will be spent in preliminaries, and the instruction shall remain incomplete.
I begin. I will say nothing of these fleshy globes. You know as well as I, Eugenie, that they are indifferently known as bosoms, breasts, tits. Pleasure may put them to profitable use. While amusing himself, a lover has them continually before his eyes. He caresses them, handles them. Indeed, some lovers form of them the very seat of their pleasure, and niche their member between these twin mounts of Venus, which the woman then squeezes together, compressing this member. After a little management, certain men succeed in spreading thereupon the delicious balm of life whose outpouring causes the whole happiness of libertines. But this member, of which we shall be obliged to speak incessantly, should we not be well advised, madame, to give our student a lecture upon it?
Verily, I do think so.
Very well, madame. I am going to recline upon this couch. Place yourself near me. Then you will lay hands upon the subject, and you will yourself explain its properties to our young student.
This scepter of Venus you have before your eyes, Eugenie, is the primary agent of love's pleasure. It is called the member. There's not a single part of the human body into which it cannot introduce itself. Always obedient to the passions of the person who wields it. Sometimes it nests there. She touches Eugenie's cunt. This is the ordinary route, the one in widest use, but not the most agreeable. In pursuit of a more mysterious sanctuary, it is often here. She spreads wide Eugenie's buttocks and indicates the anus, that the libertine seeks enjoyment. We will return to this most delicious pleasure of them all. There are as well the mouth, the breasts, the armpits, which provide him with further altars upon which to burn his incense. And finally, whatever be the place among all these he most prefers, after a few instants of agitation, the member may be seen to vent a white and viscous liquor, whose flowing forth plunges the man into a delirium intense enough to procure for him the sweetest pleasures he can hope to have in life.
How much should I like to see this liquor flow?
I need but vibrate my hand. You see how the thing becomes irritated the more I chafe and pull on it? These movements are known as pollution, and in the language of libertinage, this action is called frigging.
Oh, please, dear friend, allow me to frig this splendid member.
Look out. I'll not be able... Don't interfere with her, madame. This ingenuousness has got me horribly erected.
No good will come of this excitement. Be reasonable, de Moncey. Once that semen flows, the activity of your animal spirits will be diminished, and the warmth of your dissertations will be lessened correspondingly. Fondling de Moncey's testicles.
Oh, my dear friend, how sorry I am you resist my desires. And these balls, what might be their purpose? What are they called?
The technical term is genitals, male genitals. Testicles belong to art. The balls are the reservoir containing the abundant semen I have just mentioned, and which, expelled into the woman's matrix or womb, produces the human species. But we will not stress these details, Eugenie, for they relate more to medicine than to libertinage. A pretty girl ought simply to concern herself with fucking, and never with engendering. No need to touch at greater length on what pertains to the dull business of population. From now on, we shall address ourselves principally, nay, uniquely, to those libertine lecheries whose spirit is in no wise reproductive.
But, dear friend, when this enormous member I can scarcely grip in my hand, when this member penetrates, as you assure me it can, into a hole as little as the one in your behind, that must cause the woman a great deal of pain.
Whether this introduction be wrought before or behind, if she is not yet accustomed to it, a woman always suffers. It has pleased nature so to make us that we attain happiness only by way of pain. But once vanquished, and had this way, nothing can equal the joy one tastes upon the entrance of this member into our ass. It is a pleasure incontestably superior to any sensation procured by this same introduction in front. And besides, how many dangers does a woman thus avoid? Fewer risks to her health, and none at all of pregnancy. For the present, I'll say no more about this delight. Your master and mine, Eugenie, will soon award it a full analysis, and by uniting practice with theory, will, I trust, convince you, my precious one, that amongst all the bedroom's pleasures, that is the only one for which you should have a preference.
I beg you to speed your demonstrations, madame, for I can no longer restrain myself. I'll discharge despite my efforts, and this redoubtable member, reduced to nothing, will be unable to aid your lessons.
What, it would be reduced to nothing, dear heart, if it were to lose the semen you speak of? Oh, do allow me to help him lose it, so that I may see what happens to it. And besides, I should take such pleasure in seeing it flow.
No, no, de Montse, up with you. Remember that this is a payment of your labors, and that I'll not turn her over to you until you've merited it.
So be it. But the better to convince Eugenie of all we are going to relate concerning pleasure. Would it be in any way prejudicial to Eugenie's instruction if, for instance, you were to frig her in front of me?
Why, doubtless not. And I shall do so all the more happily, since I am certain this lubricious episode will only enrich our lessons. On to the couch, my sweet.
Oh, dear God, but why all these mirrors?
By repeating our attitudes and postures in 1,000 different ways, they infinitely multiply those same pleasures for the person seated here upon this ottoman. Thus everything is visible. No part of the body can remain hidden. Everything must be seen. These images are so many groups disposed around those enchained by love, so many delicious tableaux wherewith lewdness waxes drunk and which soon drive us into climax.
What marvelous invention!
De Montse, undress the victim yourself.
That will not be difficult, since it is merely a question of removing this gauze in order to discern naked the most appealing features. He strips her, and his first glances are instantly directed upon her behind. And so I am about to see this divine, this priceless ass of which I have such ardent expectations. Ah, by God, what fullness of flesh, and what coolness, what stunning elegance. Never have I seen one lovelier.
Rascal, how clearly your initial homages betray your tastes and pleasures.
But can there be anything in the world to equal this? Where might love find a more divine altar? Eugenie, sublime Eugenie, let me overwhelm this ass of yours with the softest caresses.
Stop, libertine. You forget Eugenie belongs to me only. She's to be your reward for the lessons she awaits from you, but you'll not have your recompense before she has been given those lessons. Enough of this ardor, or you'll anger me.
Scoundrel, it's your jealousy. Very well. Pass me yours, and I'll pay it a similar homage. Ah, 'tis lovely, my angel. 'Tis delicious, too. Let me compare them both. I'd see them one next to the other, Ganymede beside Venus. In order to have the bewitching spectacle of so much beauty constantly before my eyes, madam, could you not, by interlacing yourselves, uninterruptedly offer my gaze these charming asses I worship?
Perfectly well. There. Are you satisfied?
It could not be better. 'Tis precisely what I asked for. And now, agitate those superb asses with all the fire of lubricity. Let them sink and rise in cadence. Let them obey the proddings whereby pleasure is going to stir them. Oh, splendid. Splendid 'tis delicious.
Oh, my dearest one, what pleasures you give me. What is it you call what you're doing now?
Frigging, my pet. Giving oneself pleasure. Stop a moment. We'll alter our positions. Examine my cunt. Thus is named the Temple of Venus. Look sharply at that coin your hand covers. Examine it well. I'm going to open it a little. This elevation you notice above is called the mound, which is garnished with hair generally when one reaches the age of 14 or 15, when that is, a girl begins to have periods. Here above is a little tongue-shaped thing. That is the clitoris, and there lies all a woman's power of sensation. It is the center of all mine. It would be impossible to tickle this part of me without seeing me swoon with delight. Try it. Oh, you sweet little bitch, how well you do it. One would think you've done nothing else all your life. Enough, enough, stop. No, I tell you no. I do not wish to surrender myself. Oh, de Montse, stop me. Under the enchanted fingers of this pretty child, I am about to go out of my mind.
You might be able to lower the temperature of your ideas by varying them. Frig her in your turn, keep a grip on yourself, and let her go to work. There, yes, in this position. In this manner, her pretty little ass is between my hands. I'll pollute it ever so slightly with a finger. Let yourself go. Let yourself go, Eugenie. Abandon all your senses to pleasure. Let it be the one object, the one god of your existence. It is to this god a girl ought to sacrifice everything, and in her eyes nothing must be as holy as pleasure.
Nothing in the world is so delightful, I do feel that. I'm beside myself. I no longer know what I'm saying nor what I'm doing. What a drunkenness steals through all of my being. I am dead, exhausted, but I beg you to explain 2 words you pronounced and which I do not understand. First of all, what does womb signify?
'Tis a kind of vessel, much resembling a bottle whose neck embraces the male's member, and which receives the fuck produced in the woman by glandular seepage, and in the man by the ejaculation we will exhibit for you. And of the commingling of these liquors is born the germ whereof results now boys, now girls.
Oh, I see. This definition simultaneously explains the word fuck, whose meaning I did not thoroughly grasp until now. And is the union of the seeds necessary to the formation of the fetus?
Assuredly. Although it is proven that the fetus owes its existence only to the man's sperm, this latter by itself, unmixed with the woman's, would come to naught. But that which we women furnish has a merely elaborative function. It does not create. It furthers creation without being its cause. Indeed, there are several contemporary naturalists who claim it is useless. Whence the moralists, always guided by science's discoveries, have decided, and the conclusion has a degree of plausibility, that, such being the case, the child born of the father's blood owes filial tenderness to him alone, an assertion not without its appealing qualities, and one which, even though woman, I should not be inclined to contest.
It is in my heart I find confirmation of what you tell me, my dear, for I love my father to distraction, and I feel a loathing for my mother.
But there is nothing unusual about that predilection. I have always thought as you. I still lament my father's death. When I lost my mother, I lit a perfect bonfire from joy. I detested her. Be unafraid, Eugenie, and adopt these same sentiments. They are natural. Uniquely formed of our sire's blood, we owe absolutely nothing to our mothers. What, furthermore, did they do but cooperate in the act which our fathers, on the contrary, solicited? Thus, it was the father who desired our birth, whereas the mother merely consented thereto. As regards sentiment, what a difference.
Yet 1,000 more reasons in your favor, Eugenie, if it is a mother still alive. If in all the world there is a mother who ought to be abhorred, she is certainly yours. Superstitious, pious, a shrew, a scold, and what with her revolting prudery, I dare wager the fool has never in her life committed a faux pas. Ah, my dear, how I hate virtuous women. But we'll return to that question.
And now, would it not be fitting for Eugenie, and directed by me, to learn to pay back what you have just done in her behalf? I think she might frig you before me.
I applaud the suggestion. And while she frigs me, would not you, de Montse, relish the sight of my ass?
Are you able to doubt, madame, of the pleasure with which I will render it my gentlest homage?
Presenting her buttocks to him. Do you find me suitable thus?
Wonderfully. I should never find a better manner to render you all the services Eugenie found so enormously to her liking. And now, my little wildcat, station yourself for a moment between your friend's legs. So, and with that pretty little tongue of yours, care for her as she has for you. Why, bless me, this way I shall be able to manage both your asses. I'll fondle Eugenie's while sucking her lovely friends. There, admirable. How agreeable we are all together.
Good God, I'm dying. De Montse, how I love to handle your prick while I discharge. I'd have it drown me in fuck, so frig it. Suck me, oh heavenly fuck. How I love to play the whore when my sperm flows this way. It's done. Finished. I cannot go on. You've ruined me, both of you. I think I have never had so much pleasure in my life.
And how happy I am to be its cause. But, dear friend, you have just uttered another unfamiliar word. What do you understand this expression whore to mean? Forgive me, but you know I'm here to learn.
Why, most lovely one, and such wise are called the public victims of the debauchery of men, creatures prepared at all times to surrender their persons, whether from temperament or for reward. Happy and deserving creatures common opinion assails, but whom license crowns, and who, far more necessary to the society which they strive to serve than are prudes, forgo the esteem an unjust society denies them. All hail to those in whose eyes this title is an honor. Such are truly lovable women, the only authentic philosophers. As for myself, dear heart, I, who for 12 years have endeavored to merit the laurel, I assure you that if I do not work as a whore, I always play as one. Better still, I love thus to be named when I am fucked. 'Tis a vilification that fires my brain.
My dear, I fancy I too should not be sorry to be called a whore, though 'tis true I scarcely merit the name. But is not virtue opposed to such misconduct? And does it not reproach us for behaving as we do?
Ah, Eugenie, have done with virtues. Among the sacrifices that can be made to those counterfeit divinities, is there one worth an instant of the pleasures one tastes in outraging them? Come, my sweet. Virtue is but a chimera, whose worship consists exclusively in perpetual immolations, in unnumbered rebellions against the temperament's inspirations. Can such impulses be natural? Does nature recommend what offends her? Eugenie, be not the dupe of those women you hear called virtuous. Theirs are not, if you wish, the same passions as ours, but they hearken to others, and often more contemptible. There is ambition, pride, self-seeking, and often, again, it is a question of mere situational numbness, of torpor. There are beings who have no urges. Are we, I ask, to revere such as them? No. The virtuous woman acts, or is inactive, from pure selfishness. Is it then better, wiser, more just to perform sacrifices to egoism than to one's passions? As for me, I believe the one far worthier than the other, and who heeds but this latter voice is far better advised, no question of it, since it only is the organ of nature, while the former is simply that of stupidity and prejudice. One single drop of fuck shed from this member, Eugenie, is more precious to me than the most sublime deeds of a virtue I scorn.
But there is more than one species of virtue. What think you of, for example, pity?
What can it be for whosoever has no belief in religion? And who is able to have religious beliefs? Come now, Eugenie, let's reason systematically. Do you not call religion the pact that binds man to his creator, and which obliges him to give his creator evidence, by means of worship, of his gratitude for the existence received from this sublime author?
It could not be better defined.
Excellent. If it is demonstrated that man owes his existence to nothing but nature's irresistible schemes, if man is thus proven as ancient in this world as is ancient the globe itself, he is but as the oak, as grain, as the minerals to be found in the earth's entrails, who are bound only to reproduce, reproduction being necessitated by the globe's existence, which owes its own to nothing whatsoever. If it is demonstrated that this God, whom fools behold as the author and maker of all we know there to be, is simply the nec plus ultra of human reason, merely the phantom, created at the moment this reason can advance its operations no further, it is proven that this God's existence is impossible, and that nature, forever in action, forever moving, has of herself what it pleases idiots to award God gratuitously. If it is certain that this inert being's existence, once supposed, he would be of all things the most ridiculous, since he would have been useful only one single time, and therefore, and throughout millions of centuries, fixed in a contemptible stillness and inactivity, that, supposing him to exist as religion portrays him to us, this would be the most detestable of creatures, since it would be God who permits evil to be on earth, while his omnipotence could prevent it. If, I say, all that is admitted to be proven, as incontestably it is, do you believe, Eugenie, that it is a very necessary virtue, this piety, which binds man to an idiotic, insufficient, atrocious, and contemptible creator?
What? Then you mean to say, dear friend, God's existence is an illusion?
And without doubt one of the most deplorable.
To believe therein, one must first have gone out of one's mind. Fruit of the terror of some, and of the frailty of others, that abominable phantom, Eugenie, is of no use to the terrestrial scheme, and would infallibly be injurious to it, since the will of God would have to be just, and should never be able to ally itself to the essential injustices decreed by nature. Since he would constantly have to will the good, while nature must desire it only as compensation for the evil which serves her laws. Since it would be necessary that he, God, exert his influence at all times, while nature, one of whose laws is this perpetual activity, could only find herself in competition with and unceasing opposition to him. Am I to hear in reply that God and nature are one? 'Tis an absurdity. The thing created cannot be the creative being's equal. Might the pocket watch be the watchmaker? Very well, then, they will continue, nature is nothing, it is God who is all. Another stupidity. There are necessarily two things in the universe, the creative agent and the being created. Now, to identify this creative agent is the single task before us, the one question to which one has got to provide a reply. If matter acts, is moved by combinations unknown to us, if movement is inherent in nature, if, in short, she alone, by reason of her energy, is able to create, produce, preserve, maintain, hold in equilibrium within the immense plains of space all the spheres that stand before our gaze and whose uniform march, unvarying, fills us with awe and admiration, what then becomes of the need to seek out a foreign agent, since this active faculty essentially is to be found in nature herself, who is naught else than matter in action? Do you suppose your deific chimera will shed light upon anything? I defy anyone to prove him to me. It being supposed that I am mistaken upon matter's internal faculties, I have before me at least nothing worse than a difficulty. What do you do for me when you offer your God to me? Nothing but offering one more God. And how would you have me acknowledge as cause of what I do not understand something that I understand even less? Will it be by means of the Christian religion that I shall examine, that I shall obtain a view of your appalling God? Then let us cast a glance upon the God Christianity propounds. What do I see in the God of that infamous sect, if not an inconsistent and barbarous being? Today the creator of a world of destruction he repents of tomorrow. What do I see there but a frail being, forever unable to bring man to heel and force him to bend a knee? This creature, although emanated from him, dominates him, knows how to offend him, and thereby merits torments eternally. What a weak fellow, this God! How able he was to mold all that we know, and to fail to form man in his own guise. Whereunto you will answer, that had man been created so, man would have been little deserving of his author. What a platitude that is! And what necessity is there that man be deserving of his God? Had man been formed wholly good, man should never have been able to do evil, and only then would the work be worthy of a God. To allow man to choose was to tempt him, and God's infinite powers very well advised him of what would be the result. Immediately the being was created. It was hence to pleasure that God doomed the creature he had himself formed. A horrible God, this God of yours, a monster. Is there a criminal more worthy of our hatred and our implacable vengeance than he? However, little content with a task so sublimely executed, he drowns man to convert him. He burns him. He curses him. Nothing in all that alters man one jot. More powerful than this villainous God, a being still in possession of his power, forever able to brave his author, the devil, by his seductions, incessantly succeeds in leading astray the flock that the Eternal reserved unto himself. Nothing can vanquish the hold this demon's energy has upon us. But picture in your own terms the frightful God you preach. He has but one son, an only son, begot of some passing strange commerce. For as man doth fuck, so he hath willed that his Lord fucketh too. And the Lord didst detach and send down out of heaven this respectable part of himself. One perhaps imagines that 'tis upon celestial rays, in the midst of an angelic cortege, within sight of all the universe, this sublime creature is going to appear. Not at all. 'Tis upon a Jewish whore's breast. 'Tis in a proper pigsty that there is announced the God who has come to save the earth. Behold the worthy extraction accorded to this personage. But his mission is honorable. Will he disabuse us? Let us have a close look at him for an instant. What does he say? What is it he does? What is his sublime mission? What mystery is he about to reveal? What is the dogma he is going to prescribe for us? What will be the act wherein at last his grandeur will shine? I see, first of all, an obscure childhood, a few doubtless very libertine services this smutty fellow renders the priests at the Temple of Jerusalem. Next, a 15 years' disappearance, during which the scoundrel goes to poison himself with all the reveries of the Egyptian school, which at length he fetches back to Judea. Scarcely does he reappear when his raving begins. He says he's the Son of God, his Father's peer. To this alliance he joins another phantom he calls the Holy Ghost, and these three persons, he swears, must be but one. The more this preposterous mystery amazes the reason, the more the low fellow declares there is merit in swallowing it, and danger in refusing it. It is to save us one and all, the imbecile argues, that he has assumed a fleshly shape, although he is God, mortally incarnate in the breast of a child of man, and the glittering wonders one is about to see him perform will speedily convince all the world of it. During a ribald supper, indeed, the cheat transforms, so they say, water into wine. In a desert, he feeds a few bandits upon the victuals previously hidden there by his devoted confederates. One of his cronies plays dead, our impostor restores him to life again. He betakes himself to a mountain, and there, before 2 or 3 of his friends only, he brings off a jugglery that would cause the worst among our contemporary mountebanks to redden with shame. Roundly damning, moreover, all those who do not accredit him, the scoundrel promises the heavens to whatever fools will listen. He writes nothing, for he is ignorant, talks very little, for he is stupid, does even less, for he is weak, and finally, completely exhausting the patience of the magistrates with his seditious outbursts, the charlatan has himself fixed to the cross, after having assured the rogues who follow him that every time they invoke him, he will descend to them to get himself eaten. He is put to torture, he puts up with it. Monsieur his papa, that sublime God, whence he dares affirm he descends, succors him not in the least. And there you have him, this scoundrel, used like the last of the outlaws of whom he was such a fitting chief. His henchmen assemble. It's all up with us, they say, and all our hopes are perished, lest we save ourselves with a quick piece of cunning. We'll besot the guards set to watch over Jesus, then make off with his body, spread the word abroad he is risen, the trick's sure. If we manage to get this knavery believed, our new religion's founded, propagated, it'll seduce the world. To work. The blow is struck. It succeeds. In how many blackguards has not boldness occupied the place of merit? The corpse is filched. Fools, women, children bawl out, "Miracle!" at the top of their lungs. Nevertheless, in this city where such prodigies have just been wrought, in this city stained with the God's blood, no one cares to believe in this God. Not a single conversion is operated there. Better yet, so little worthy of transmission is the event that no historian alludes to it. Only this impostor's disciples think they have something to gain from the fraud, but not at the hour. This detail is crucial. Let's note it well. They permit several years to pass before exploiting their artifice. At length, they erect upon it the shaky edifice of their unwholesome doctrine. Men are pleased by any novelty. Weary of the emperor's despotism, the world agrees to the need for a revolution. These cheats are heard. They make a very rapid progress. 'Tis the story of every era. Soon the altars of Venus and Mars are changed to those of Jesus and Mary. The life of the impostor is published. The insipid fiction finds its dupes. He is represented as having said 100 things which never came into his head. Some few of his own drivellings instantly become the basis of his morality. And as this romance is preached to the poor, charity becomes its foremost virtue. Weird rites are instituted under the name of sacraments. The most offensive and the most abominable of them all is the one whereby a priest, covered with crimes, has, notwithstanding, thanks to a few magical words, the power to bring God back in a morsel of bread. Let there be no mistake. At its very birth, this shameful cult might have been utterly destroyed had one but employed against it the contempt it deserved. But men took it into their heads to employ persecution. The cult throve. 'Twas inevitable. Even today, were one to cover it with ridicule, it would fall. The adroit Voltaire never used any other arm, and among all writers he is the one who may congratulate himself upon having the greatest number of converts. Such, in a few words, Eugenie, is the history of God and of religion. Consider the treatment these fables deserve, and adopt a determined attitude toward them.
My choice is unperplexed. I scorn the lot of these unhealthy reveries, and this God himself, to whom I lately clove through weakness or through ignorance, is henceforth nothing for me but an object of horror.
Swear to me to think no more of him, never to be concerned for him, never to invoke him at any moment in your life, and so long as breath be in you, never to return to him.
I pledge it in your arms. How readily I see that what you demand is for my own good, and that you would never have such reminiscences disturb my tranquility.
What other motive could I have?
But de Moncey, it seems to me that it was the analysis of virtues that led us to examination of religions. Let us now return to the former. Might there not exist in this religion, completely ridiculous though it is, some virtues prescribed by it, whose cultivation could contribute to our happiness?
All right, let us see. Shall chastity be that virtue your own eyes destroy, Eugenie, although you and all about you are the very image of it? Are you going to respect the obligations to combat all nature's operations? Will you sacrifice them all to the vain and ludicrous honor of never having had a weakness? Be fair and answer me, pretty little friend. Think you to find in this absurd and dangerous purity of soul all the pleasures of the contrary vice?
No, I am bound to declare I see nothing there. I do not feel the least inclination to be chaste, but rather the most compelling urge to the opposite vice. But de Moncey, might not charity and benevolence bring happiness to some sensitive souls?
Begone those virtues which produce naught but ingratitude. But my charming friend, be not at all deceived. Benevolence is surely rather pride's vice than an authentic virtue in the soul. Never is it with the single intention of performing a good act, but instead ostentatiously that one aids one's fellow man. One would be most annoyed were the alms one has just bestowed not to receive the utmost possible publicity. Nor, Eugenie, are you to imagine that, as is the popular view, this action has only excellent consequences. For my part, I behold it as nothing other than the greatest of all duperies. It accustoms the poor man to doles which provoke the deterioration of his energy. When able to expect your charities, he ceases to work, and becomes, when they fail him, a thief or assassin. On all sides I hear them ask after the means to suppress mendacity, and meanwhile they do everything possible to encourage it. Would you have no flies in your bedchamber? Don't spread about sugar to attract them into it. You wish to have no poor in France? Distribute no alms, and above all, shut down your poorhouses. The individual born in misfortune, thereupon seeing himself deprived of these dangerous crutches, will fend for himself, summoning up all the resources put in him by nature, to extricate himself from the condition wherein he started life, and he will importune you no longer. Destroy, with entire unpity, raze to the ground, those detestable houses where you billet the progeny of the libertinage of the poor, appalling cloacas, wherefrom there every day spews forth into society a swarm of new-made creatures whose unique hope resides in your purse. What purpose, I ask, is there in preserving such individuals with so much care? Does anyone fear France's depopulation? Dread not. One of the foremost of this nation's defects consists in a population by far too numerous, and much is wanting when such overabundances become considered the state's riches. These supernumerary beings are like unto the parasitical branches which, living only at the trunk's expense, always bring it to final decline. Remember that in no matter what political organization, whenever the size of the population exceeds what is strictly necessary to its existence, that society languishes. Examine France well, and you will observe that to be her situation. What results of it? 'Tis clear. The Chinese, wiser than we, are most careful to avoid the perils of excessive numbers. No asylum for the shameful fruit of debauchery. It is not preserved, it is abandoned, just as are the aftermaths of digestion. No establishments for poverty. Such a thing is totally unknown in China. There everyone works. There everyone is happy. Nothing saps the poor man's energy, and everyone can say, as did Nero, quid est pauper?
Beloved friend, my father thinks exactly as Mr. de Moncey. Never in his life has he performed a good work, and he is continually abusing my mother for the money she spends in such practices. She belongs to the Maternal Society, to the Philanthropic Club. I have no idea what association she is not a member. He obliged her to stop all that by promising he would reduce her to the narrowest pension were she to relapse into similar follies. There is nothing more ludicrous, at the same time more dangerous, Eugenie, than all these sodalities. It is to them, to free public schools, and to charitable establishments, we owe the terrible disorder in which we presently live. Never give alms, my dear, I beseech you. Nothing to fear on that score. It was long ago my father put me under the same obligation, and I am too little tempted to benevolence to disregard his orders, my heart's impulses and your desires.
Nature has endowed each of us with a capacity for kindly feelings. Let us not squander them on others. What to me are the woes that beset others? Have I not enough of my own, without afflicting myself with those that are foreign to me? May our sensibilities' hearth warm not but our pleasures. Let us feel when it is to their advantage, and when it is not, let us be absolutely unbending. From this exact economy of feeling, from this judicious use of sensibility, there results a kind of cruelty which is sometimes not without its delights. One cannot always do evil. Deprived of the pleasures it affords, we can at least find the sensations equivalent in the minor but piquant wickedness of never doing good.
Dear God, how your discourses inflame me. I believe I would now sooner suffer death than be made to perform a good act.
And were the opportunity presented to do an evil one, would you be ready to commit it?
Be still, temptress. I'll not answer that until you have completed my instruction. In the light of all you tell me, it seems, de Moncey, that there is nothing on earth as indifferent as committing of good or evil. Ought not our tastes, our temperament alone cancel us?
Ah, be in no doubt of it, Eugenie. These words vice and virtue contain for us naught but local ideas. There is no deed, in whatever the unusual form you may imagine it, which is really criminal, none which may be really called virtuous. All is relative to our manners and the climate we inhabit. What is a crime here is often a virtue several hundred leagues hence, and the virtues of another hemisphere might well reverse themselves into crimes in our own. There is no horror that has not been consecrated somewhere, no virtue that has not been blasted. When geography alone decides whether an action be worthy of praise or blame, we cannot attach any great importance to ridiculous and frivolous sentiments, but rather should be impeccably armed against them, to the point, indeed, where we fearlessly prefer the scorn of men if the actions which excite it are for us sources of even the mildest voluptuousness.
But it would, however, appear to me that there must be actions in themselves so dangerous and so evil that they have come to be considered from one end of the earth to the other as generally criminal.
There are none, my love, none. Not even theft, nor incest, neither murder, nor parricide itself.
What? Such horrors are somewhere tolerated?
They have been honored, crowned, beheld as exemplary deeds, wherein in other places humaneness, candor, benevolence, chastity, in brief, all our virtues, have been regarded as monstrosities.